thought, which relates directly to English. And like math, it provides invaluable experience of studying one systemic subject all the way to mastery. So, and Latin students just generally score higher than modern language students on the ACT and SAT. I'll show you why we think we can verify that here.
I got a question.
Sure.
Can you elaborate a little bit about Latin? How is it taught? Do you converse in Latin, or is it?
There's some, you're a Latin student, though. You want to answer that real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in Latin 4 right now, and we do not converse during the class setting in Latin since it's a dead language, so obviously no converses in it right now.
Don't let Mr. Kim hear you.
Yes, exactly. But so we will read during class. We have a textbook. It's called Locke's Latin, and it has lots of old Latin readings and poems and all sorts of. It's a very large book, but we'll go through readings during the day. Most of the early Latin classes are all grammar, so that by around Latin 3 you can start getting into a little more advanced readings by Cicero, Ovid, different Latin authors. But yeah, so no conversing, but a lot of reading.
Thank you. All right, so classical education versus training. I've talked about this a few times today. Training, most of what public schooling is today, the teaching of skills that are oriented toward whatever jobs are seem to be in demand of employees today, versus a classical education which tends to be more timeless and goes all the way back to ancient Greek and ancient Rome. Classical education assumes that there are great things that have been discovered, great literature that exists. There are certain elements of humor and human nature that have never changed, and that it is to our advantage as individuals to understand that and to keep and refine that which is great and proven to be truthful and beautiful, rather than start all over year after year after year, or assume that education is about where we are here and today. So we take a 3,000-year view of what education ought to be, and we think it's much broader and much more empowering, and we actually think that it prepares our kids more for the world than being prepared for what we think is out there today, that is much of which is going to change by the time we graduate from college. All right, philosophy discussion. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Very useful with respect to the French Revolution, because you have the industrialization. The Industrial Revolution is taking place throughout the world. People are leaving the farms, they're coming to the big cities, they're starting to read on their own and get ideas on their own. And Rousseau comes to this notion that, which was very functional. It was part a philosophy about mankind and human nature that tried to explain these things and explain the world in a way that would allow nations and monarchies to maintain loyalty to their subjects, to make sure French people still wanted to be French, to make sure that the Brits still wanted to be subjects of the crown. And he comes to the conclusion that human nature changes over time based on things in nature and the environment that changes around you. And if you take the time to understand what changes human nature, as a good leader, as a good monarch, as a good member of the intellectual elite, you could change different stimuli within a community or within a nation in order to steer individuals in certain directions. And now his philosophy had more to do with politics and civil society and economics, a little bit with education, but it applied very directly to education because, after all, if you can take that philosophy, when would be the best time to start changing the inputs of your subjects so that you can lead them in the direction you want them to be led? And now we're talking about schools. Now, during his time, not everybody went to school, but more people were starting to go to school. You wouldn't need to go to school in his day if your father was, let's say, a bricklayer. Because if your father was a bricklayer, you were going to be a bricklayer. And your kids were probably going to be a bricklayer as well. And your grandparents were probably bricklayers. And because that's the way skills and apprenticeships were passed from generation to generation, and you just became what you knew, what your environment was. And you wouldn't need to go to school to learn history and Greek and great languages if your lot in life was to be a bricklayer. And so the only people who went to school in Rousseau's day were the wealthy and the wealthy elite. But they started wanting an education, and so this philosophy became very useful, especially with that guy, Heinrich Pestalozzi. Pestalozzi was Swiss. He became the architect of the Prussian education system, the notion being that children should be taught from a very early age to be loyal Prussian subjects, to serve their state. And so it is today. Whether it's the Prussian education system, it's from him we get the word kindergarten, for example. So it is today that when you think of Germans, I'm quarter German, excuse me, Grandpa. Quarter German. And when you think of Germans, what do you think of today? German society, German economy, what do you think of? Anyone?
Highly skilled.
Yeah, highly skilled, precision engineering, great technology. Why? Well, because that's what the Germans decided years and years ago, after World War I. That is how the German education system was oriented in order to maintain its economy and in order to maintain a great German citizenship, in order to sustain and maintain pride in all things German and so on. So the Germans today, this is where I make people mad. Germans even today, very, very good at knowing how to do a lot of things. What I would just suggest Americans are better at is knowing why. And it is a function of this philosophy, this Rousseau, Pestalozzi. This is the American extension of this philosophy. Anybody recognize that guy? You should. Parents, this guy's had more influence on our education than anyone else in America. This is John Dewey. He wrote his book in 1916. World War I was the turning point in American education. Prior to his time, if you wanted somebody to teach history in your school, you would hire somebody with a history degree. You wanted somebody to teach chemistry, you would hire somebody with a chemistry degree. Dewey makes science. He makes a living. He makes a big mark on education by focusing on this Rousseau theory that human nature can be changed to do just what the title of the book says. To have education and democracy be part of the same set of objectives. Okay? After Dewey, what Dewey suggests is that it's not so important to focus on what students are taught and what they know in terms of actual subject matter and academic content. We also need to take as much time, if not more, to understand the psychology of youngsters, because not all kids learn at the same rate, at the same pace, and not all kids have the same interest, and not all kids have the ability to learn in the same way. And so the influence he had on me is when I was in the first, second, third, all the way up through sixth grade, as I can remember, we didn't read one book in the classroom, the Dick, Jane, and Sally book. There were 3 reading groups named after birds. So you were in the bluebird group, or the cardinal group, or the robin group. And the teachers would say, there's no difference between the 3. But we all knew, those are the really smart kids. These are the marginally smart kids in my group. And everybody knew. And we would learn to read it different way. And we were taught, and teachers began to be taught that kids learn in different ways. Some are tactile, some are auditory learners, some are visual learners. And so you need to come up with distinct strategies in order to deliver curriculum to different students in their classroom based on how they learn. And not only that, not all students are interested and inclined to learn about certain things. And so we need to ask questions from an early grade about what their aptitude is, what their interest and their orientation is. And that's why you have, in Germany, to this day, starting in the 3rd and 4th grade, the school and family sit down to make decisions about which direction you're going to go. Is it going to be math and science? Is it going to be the humanities? Is it going to be vocational? That makes perfect sense in a German society, even today. And so that's how they get the precision German engineering, because those kids have been trained for those jobs from the 3rd and 4th grade. I can't comment on their farming skills. They're probably good. All right. I imagine that's probably true. I mean, they're probably good at everything. So with that philosophy and with that orientation toward education, the emergence of the teachers' college occurs throughout the country. And they pop up everywhere. And people love this. People going into education love the idea of the teachers' college and what is being taught at the teachers' college. Because it's a lot easier than learning Greek. It's a lot easier than learning Latin. It's a lot easier than learning Greek philosophy. And it makes intuitive sense to many, many individuals. And so it is today. If you want to teach in a public school, you've got to go to one of these teacher colleges typically, and you've got to go get a teacher's license, and you've got to certify to the state that you know all about the classroom psychology that Dewey originated and has been perfected ever since then. And it is an education toward, and we like this word in America for some reason, an education toward a political objective, for instance. People don't often think about this. A political objective, and one that is more of a political strategy rather than a political statement. You see, we don't pledge allegiance. I like to say this when people say, we need to go. I've got 3 kids who are warriors, and people say, they should go over and fight for democracy in Iran or Iraq or whatever it is earlier. Democracy was such a good idea. Why didn't our founders create one? Because they didn't. They created a republic, which is different, and that's what we pledge allegiance to in the morning at the school. Democracy is a strategy. It's just how we collectively make decisions. But the goal, Dewey's goal here, is just as it says, and that is to consider the American democracy and the needs and the goals and the objectives of the country, and children ought to be taught in a way that helps them be strong and loyal supporters to a political strategy. And listen, I love America. I've sworn oaths to it over and over again. I've stood by and cheered when my kids signed up to go put on uniforms in the profession of arms, and I love the country. But the purpose of a republic is to protect the rights of individuals, not the other way around. And that's why the country is so great. It's because we are more important than even our great country. And the reason our country succeeds is because we've always understood that until we were taught otherwise, and starting in 1916. And today, that guy right there has the most influence on your kids probably, National Center on Education and the Economy. Mark Tucker is kind of the architect of it. I mentioned the Common Core curriculum earlier. He's the architect of that, really. It's been kicked around for years. It really didn't catch on until Bill Gates started putting hundreds of millions of dollars behind it to get Common Core standards, to lobby it, and also get them adopted by states. There's an assessment I mentioned, this PARC assessment, Colorado. All of our kids are taking this now, starting this year. It's a consortium of about 20 other states. The assessment on what we are supposed to teach our kids is not designed in Colorado. Just 5 years ago, when I was chairman of the State Board of Education 3 years ago, and when I was there, if you were to call me and say, Bob, I don't like the way these CSAP and TCAP tests are designed, or how they work, or the information they get, or even the questions in the test, I could do something about that as your elected representative. Members of the Board of Education now, including the Commissioner of Education, because of copyright restrictions, are not even allowed to read this exam. Okay? Our top state officials don't know what's in the test. And all we know is that it's aligned with the Common Core standards. And we hear stories after our kids take it, and then they tell us about what they say was in it and so on, but we don't really know. And it's probably not devastating, but the question is it good? Does it move us in the direction we think we ought to be moving in for our kids? And what I certainly know is that it does not measure the effectiveness of teaching a classical liberal arts curriculum. National teacher standards and certification, race to the top is federal financial giveaway if you do certain things that the Department of Education wants to see happen in your states, like then you get your money back from Washington. The No Child Left Behind Act is passed under George W. Bush, and you can get out of it if you agree to race to the top, new standards. It's really a nightmare. Here's some buzzwords. I mentioned these teachers, by the way. We do not require our teachers to be licensed here at Liberty. We do expect them to be content experts in their subject matter, and we interview them on that basis. So we've got a lot of college professors. As you walk around the school tonight, you're going to see a lot of PhDs on the names on the doors. Those are usually college professors that came to teach at Liberty. We're not going to ask them to go get a teacher's license. What we care about is whether they know their subject matter. We coach them as administrators and as a school community, and we've got a leadership structure within our faculty and staff. So there's a lot of collaboration going on to perfect our classroom delivery, and we read lots of books on this together as a school, and we measure and assess and make sure we're constantly improving. But it does not matter to me if somebody went to a teacher's college to become a teacher. When we want a science teacher, we hire somebody with a science degree. The head of our science department teaches chemistry. Her degree is in chemistry. History instructors is one like that too. Their degrees tend to be in history. Mr. Ken's degree is in Latin. And so we're not required as a charter school to hire licensed teachers. And even the state of Colorado admits that the license doesn't guarantee anything. All right, buzzwords that you should run away from that are signals of the Rousseau-Dewey model of this progressive romantic notion of education. You can see the list right there. One of the big ones you see a lot of is child-centered education. That means the child, you build an education around the child's interests. Well, it sounds good because who doesn't want children to be the center of our universe? And these kids want to be the center of our universe. And they are. Our universe, not necessarily the school system. And so, we're here to educate them, but what they learn is not a function of what they're interested in or what they think is important at any given point in time. We're the adults and the experts, and we guide them in that general direction. Critical thinking skills is another kind of a cop-out in education. It sounds so good, and of course everybody wants to think critically. Critical thinking skills turns into a curriculum where we teach kids how to do research and surf the internet so they can go find the information that they might want when they want it. We don't think that's actually learning. We don't think that's teaching. We want them to be armed as a function of memory and that tips their fingers with the content knowledge that they need to engage in a good debate, to engage in writing a great essay and a great paper, or if they're writing an essay in English class, to have the historical background to be able to write that English paper very, very well. So, see any of these words? You should run from them, unless you are not agreeing with anything you're hearing. Here's a good example. This is pretty recently. So this is just just a few months ago. This is a flyer that was sent out to all the education people, and we get these things too. It's a seminar taking place in Denver that a lot of teachers went to. Here are the two key paragraphs. Let's break these down real quick. Traditionally, teaching techniques emphasize instruction as the most worthwhile use of class time. That's what we do here. Through the ages, teachers have been taught to combine lecture with study time and homework to achieve math comprehension. That's what we do here. Yet, consider this. Low stakes testing with immediate feedback shows vast improvement without additional study time. It's called the test effect. You've got to see it to believe it, and people pay a lot of money to go see it, and a lot of people believe it. This low-stakes testing strategy, it's kind of what's taking place in public education today. So if you go to the conference, you would have gained a deeper understanding of testing from the science of learning perspective. You would learn the simplest way to achieve the largest gains for your students on state tests. You would refine your techniques on what kind of feedback to give your students and why, again, relating to the tests. And you would be able to help your students self-monitor and reflect on problem solving and see how this strategy applies to any student at any level. So there's the key right there. That public education in Colorado and throughout the country, and it's not that people are just wanting to do bad things with our kids and in schools, but this is becoming the goal of education in Colorado and throughout America, is get your kids to do well on these state standardized tests, which are broad. They're not focused on what you might want, which is to be able to thrive in college, and not focused on, and then they're not ambitious. They're not, the Common Core standards are not internationally benchmarked, by the way. And, there's great risk, in my opinion, that after years and years of this experiment, our kids are going to be in a place we don't want them to be as parents, and we can't get them back by then. So we stick with what works. And it has worked for 3,000 years. We really invent nothing here at this school. So getting back to classical education, which I'll talk about now, and start turning a corner toward our finish here, and our philosophy. So we are more persuaded by this philosopher, John Locke. John Locke also considered human nature he came to the conclusion that human nature never changes. That kids in ancient Greece and ancient Rome were motivated by the same things kids are motivated by today. That our families and our relationships to our spouses, to our own children, to our parents, really haven't changed. Sure, technology has changed, language has changed, things around us has changed, but human nature, in Locke's opinion, doesn't change. It is a great constant. It is set in motion that way as a function of nature. And we are a part of it. He comes up with the term, you've seen many of these terms attributed to John Locke, tabula rasa. And this gets back to the bricklayer. Because if your dad was a bricklayer and his dad was a bricklayer, you're probably going to be a bricklayer too in these days. And he comes to the conclusion that nobody should be bound or confined to these environmental stimulus that is around them or what rut they might have been stuck in. Since human nature is the same, the lowest one in society should, given the right opportunities to go to school, to be literate, to be healthy, to live in a decent house, should be able to accomplish the same things as those whose existence has always been in the upper class. And you should have the ability, that tabula rasa literally means clean slate. You should be able to have a clean slate and become whatever your inclination, whatever you're willing to work for. That we all have this notion of being born equal. Okay? The founding fathers really latched on to Locke as well as some other philosophers, and they didn't entirely discard Rousseau either, by the way. He had some fine things to say. Well, Rousseau comes after the American Revolution, but you see some of these words, natural law, natural rights to life, liberty, and property, these make it into our Declaration of Independence and become the essence of America's political culture and how we organize ourselves, the notion that we are all created equal, and that these things prove themselves. They prove themselves because we are a being in the state of nature, and some of these things are so obvious that reasoned, rational people can come to these conclusions about the human condition. And so this helps explain from an education perspective how it is that we expect Will and his other students in Latin 4 and AP Latin to be able to appreciate the logic and the literature of Ovid and see parallels in other ancient writings, Iliad and Odyssey, and you begin to see, even today, reading one of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales is still humorous to us because the interplay between individuals has not changed. Human nature is the same now as it was way back then. And you see that developed in Milton and Shakespeare to the point today you can turn on your television set and still see these same themes that work. And why do they work? They're still funny. They still make us cry over a great tragedy. We still cheer for the great triumph when good overcomes evil. And why? It's because these themes still make sense because human nature really does not ever change. And so we here at Liberty, we're more persuaded by John Locke and with the founders of the country as well. Thought this was a good basis not just for education, but for establishing a republic too. So Albert J. Locke, after World War I, he starts seeing where Dewey's taking the country, and Locke was more of a philosopher. And University of Virginia, this becomes significant here in a second. He comes to the conclusion that these teachers' colleges, bad idea. This notion that the content experts are no longer the primary teachers in schools, bad idea. The idea that kids are no longer learning Greek and Latin and they're no longer learning about ancient history and Western civilization, bad idea. And he comes to the conclusion that if we had to assemble our nation's greatest leaders to come up with something heroic and remarkable, we would not be able to do it anymore. And he talks about the founders. And he said, what allowed all these individuals from different countries who assembled in the 13 colonies and had different economic and religious interests to assemble in Philadelphia and meet month after month, week after week? How was it that they were able to come together and create the great document of our Declaration and launch a revolution? And the reason was they all had a common level of understanding. They all learned in Latin and Greek. They all understood, they all knew the same important time periods in history. They understood the same philosophers. And they were able to have not just a spirited conversation, but an actual meaningful conversation about the human condition and about mankind to understand what kind of nation we would build around it in order to sustain prosperity and freedom. It's the greatest experiment in the history of human civilization. And so Locke laments that it would be impossible to assemble these kinds of people in his day. And this is the book he wrote to propel that idea, Theory of Education in the United States. And he talks about how we need to get back to education and that we need to avoid this notion of training until a certain time in the child's development, which is well after high school. So, University of Virginia, we're still there because Hirsch is impressed by Albert Locke, and it has an influence on Hirsch's outlook and his research and his understanding of sociology, economics, politics, and the philosophy of education. So, after all the writing the books and so on, he starts the Core Knowledge Foundation. The foundation is the agency that maintains, keeps the books current, constantly updates them, does the research to make sure it's being taught the way it should, and to make adjustments. And so this curriculum is not set in stone. The philosophy is, but there's new things to learn every year, so that's constantly being added to the curriculum over time. So our metaphor, the philosophy we use around the school here is that education is a journey. We talk about the journey all the time. The notion that the journey gets harder every day, that you're able to accomplish more and more, and able to accomplish more heroic challenges that lie in front of you, and you actually begin to enjoy it when you realize how much you are achieving and accomplishing, and that the journey doesn't end when you get your diploma. Your journey continues on through college and through life, and we try to get our kids in that frame of mind so that they view themselves as serious learners. Which brings us back to the universal truth of education. It's the right responsibility of parents to direct the education and upbringing of their children. If you are one of those individuals who at this point is persuaded that you could drop your kids off at the front door here at the elementary school and somehow they will come home smarter, I want to assure you that is a strategy that will not work, and this probably is not your school. Okay? And we want you to make the best decision. We want us all to be happy. And so you won't hurt our feelings if you get up and leave, or if you just decide this is not your school. We don't try to be all things to all people. We try to do what I'm describing here as well as we can, and I believe we're succeeding. So, classical liberal arts, we've talked about that. Here's a quick definition. It denotes curriculum that imparts general knowledge and develops students' rational thought and intellectual capabilities, unlike professional, vocational, technical curricula emphasizing specialization. The Common Core curriculum is trying to do this and knowledge, and it does neither very well. Contemporary liberal arts comprises the study of literature, languages, philosophy, history, mathematics, and science. Here's the mission statement of the school. It's to provide excellence and fairness in education through a common foundation. This is achieved by successfully teaching a contextual body of organized knowledge of the values of a democratic society and the skills of learning. In short, we teach common knowledge, common virtue, common sense. That is the motto of the school, by the way. Our mission statement was developed on the following set of principles. And I violate all the rules of PowerPoint presentation starting now, because my board forced me to do it. They want everybody to understand our 7 principles. I'll read through fast. You can read right along with me. Number 1, children yearn for meaning and require a basis of solid contextual common knowledge for the development of mature literacy. That's that term I mentioned that E.D. Hirsch says is different, far superior than just functional literacy. And critical thinking for growth and communication in a diverse society. Number 2, the educational playing field between students of differing backgrounds should be level to provide all students a basis upon which they can build further knowledge and develop the skills necessary to communicate and succeed. This is important for us. They're all important for us. You will see this actually just during the course of the school day, and I urge you to come and wander through the school when we're in session and have your kids do spend a shadow day here. We have a dress code which is designed to help so that you walk down our hallways and you're going to be passing kids from extraordinarily wealthy families as well as kids from extraordinarily poor families. Our goal is to make it so that you can't tell the difference in how they're dressed and how they behave and in what they know. And we succeed in that, by the way. So, number 3. The skills of learning, reading, writing, speaking, calculating, and thinking are most meaningfully learned from a combination of knowledge or content of the curriculum, modeling, coaching, and sensible practice. Number 4, To thrive in work and citizenship and in personal growth, children must be taught the values of a democratic society. These values include, among other things, respect for others, their property and their rights, responsibility for actions, honesty and social justice, resourcefulness, being ready to learn, to serve, and to share. 5, inclusiveness is fundamental in responding to the diverse needs of children and raising academic standards. All parents, regardless of economic status, should be free to choose this educational program for their children. 6, teachers are professionals, and this implies considerable autonomy, mastery, and independence. Having accepted the academic and philosophic mission of the school, the teacher needs to be free to exercise informed judgment in order to fulfill his or her primary role as an educator. And number 7, principal determinants of individual academic success are individual ability and effort. And the policies of liberty, grading, discipline, homework, and teaching must support the student's adoption of a personal quest, it's the journey, for academic growth using the clearly marked path of expectations of knowledge, skill, and character. The guiding philosophy of liberty acknowledges that children can and should be held accountable for their own schoolwork and behavior with the support of teachers and their parents. The school, so we're getting to the last details of the school, it's tuition-free, public school. It's run by parents, chartered high school and elementary school, chartered by the Clear School District. Literacy, the development of literacy will be one of the primary aims and focuses of effort in the school, particularly in the early grades. The school will emphasize reading and more reading. We ask kids, we have reading lists we ask your kids to stick to over the summer. When you are throughout the school year, grades K through 8, your kids have reading logs with books that they need to be reading off of a list. They can pick anything they want as long as it's on the list, and it's a long list. And that list is refined and reviewed by our academic advisory committee, so that's classical and that relates to what we're teaching here at the school. And so you'll sign off every night that your son or daughter has read for a half hour that they're very young grade that you have read with them. And we expect kids to read a lot. We use phonics-based strategy, lots of practice. We want parents working with their kids every day. Mature literacy, this again, I've talked about this a lot, develops as a student becomes acquainted with the broad and rich body of knowledge and becomes familiar with many well-written, diverse, and meaningful works of literature. We like our kids discussing books and characters from great literature. So we have reading lists, we have summer reading programs. We are at the high school again, when we talk about classical education at the high school level, we accentuate the classical liberal arts curriculum here. We do emphasize math, science, and engineering. We do that very well here at the school. We make the highest math scores in the entire state of Colorado right down this hallway. And between math, economics, which we start in kindergarten, and our science instruction, is just a powerful confluence of those 3 topics, and that all comes together in the engineering classroom. We have 1 part engineering course that's your 1 semester your sophomore year, and after that all the engineering is elective. And we have a small school environment. I talked earlier about why we won't get much bigger. As a college preparatory school, we sufficiently prepare students to thrive at any selected university and to pursue any career they wish. Selective university is a buzzword. That means you're at most competitive universities, and we expect our faculty and staff to be in touch with selective universities throughout the country, as well as our administrative crew. Mrs. Stoltzfus will be here in a minute. We expect that we work very hard to understand what those standards are and make sure we're doing everything we can to give our kids all academic advantages to get into those kinds of schools. We have legitimate content experts. These are the best teachers in America. Her degree is in history. Her degree is in foreign language instruction. She's from Chile and teaches Spanish. That is our art instructor, Miss Ellis, best art teacher in America. Her degree is in art, her master's degree from Rhode Island School of Art and Design. Miss Tempe is the chemistry instructor and department chair. She also went to Liberty, and her degree is in chemistry. All right, don't pay any attention, or don't try to read all these numbers too much, but here's grades 3 through 10 over there, reading, writing, math. This is the state standardized test, which we do not teach to. Everything in green is number 1 in terms of performance in the Clear School District. We do pretty well by not teaching that test. We just take it. Other results, these are all bragging rights here. It's based on, I'm going to be boastful about the school, let you know that I think what we do is work. National Charter School of the Year, nationally recognized Blue Ribbon School. This is 2X. We just won 2 more state championships last weekend, and we're going to world competition. Presidential fitness champion the past 7 years. We were top 1% of all middle schools, and we're number 1 of all high schools in Colorado, according to coloradoschoolgrades.com. Results, we received the Governor's Distinguished Growth Award every year since the inception. That's that banner up there. 2014 is still my office. We need a big ladder to get up there. And then the John Irwin, these awards here, the John Irwin School of Excellence Award we've won every year since the inception of the award. And that's rare. That's not normal for schools. The certificates are actually right in the office here. Take a look at them if you like. And it was great fun when I was chairman of the State Board of Education for 7 years because the chairman gets assigned a certificate. So if I was principal here for my day job and I volunteered to be the State Board of Education, I had to get elected, so you voted for me, thanks. And but I got to sign the certificate to myself. It's kind of cool. So we received the Colorado High School Academic Growth Award this year. That was there were only 7 schools in the state that received that. coloradoschoolgrades.com ranks us the number 1 high school in all of Colorado this year. 2007, that was the first year that the state began requiring all high school juniors to take the ACT. That's the College Readiness Predictor Test. All juniors in Colorado take it, whether you're going to college or not. And so our first class to take that test was in 2012. First year we had juniors. They had a composite score of 27.5, which was the highest in the state of Colorado in year 1. Next year, 2013, they bumped it up a 1/10%. Number 1 in Colorado again, 27.6. And in 2014, those are the current seniors who are in the school right now and getting ready to graduate. Their composite score was 28.63. This is on a 36-point scale, so these are that jump from right there, 27.6 to 28.63, is actually quite significant. That is the highest composite ACT score in Colorado ever. And so this is our back-to-school day. We hung those numbers up on the school when they all were coming back, and it was a big celebration. That was number 1 in the state by almost a full point, by the way. Of all the National Merit semifinalists in the city of Fort Collins, half of them go to this school. And Mr. Locke is going to take over right now. He's the assistant principal. We are coming down in his direction.
Hi folks, welcome to Liberty Common High School. My name is Torton Lovely. I'm the assistant principal here. This is my 8th year at Liberty. My 2nd year as the assistant principal. I taught math here for 6 years, and then last year became the assistant principal. I am still teaching 1 math class, our pre-calculus math. As our assistant principal, just to come up and talk to you a little bit right now about our character education program. I oversee our student life, which is where the students have a lot of fun, and they do. We run our student government, and you'll hear about that here in a little bit. And I oversee our student discipline, are a couple of things I oversee. So I oversee our student fun and our student not so fun. But I really think that one feeds the other. I think that our character education program that we have set up provides a nice, safe, welcoming, structured environment for students to learn and focus on their education without a lot of distractions coming in. Our character education really supports that mission of the school, and that really opens it up for students to experience a lot of fun and a lot of activities in a way that makes parents feel really good about their students being in a school that has nice, clear boundaries, but that treats kids still with a lot of respect and kindness and dignity. So, our character education program, we have high moral expectations, and they are high. We're not incredibly rigid or unfair to the students, but we do have high behavioral expectations. We have a code of conduct. We expect a lot of their attitude and behavior. We have a dress code that we do enforce. But again, our goal is to create a safe, distraction-free, and a well-structured environment so that students can really put first things first and that their learning can really blossom here. But we also model that by the instructors and the staff. We look to not just teach them what good character is, but show them what good character is among the faculty and staff. And we work hard at that. But then we also look to find explicit examples within the curriculum where there are examples of good character that have been throughout history, that are in leadership, and then point out examples where there have been deficits of character and the results that come therein. So we do in our character education program emphasize these a lot. What we do is we have our capstones. Our capstone virtues, they're classic in nature. They're the cardinal virtues that were really first laid forth by Plato and Aristotle many, many years ago. The first of which is prudence, discerning the true good surrounding every situation and using prudence to make good decisions. Temperance, which is using the intellect to restrain passions of ambition and pleasure, so that we can learn to temper ourselves and temper those youthful desires. We teach students about what that looks like. Justice, where we balance self-interest with the rights of others, and we try to treat each other justly in every interaction that we have. Fortitude, withstanding fear and uncertainty. Another word for fortitude is courage. And so we talk a lot about perseverance and having courage in our academics and in interactions with each other. We talk about gratitude quite a bit, demonstrating thankfulness and gratitude, and appreciating the good that's all around us. And patriotism, being dedicated to that for which the Republic stands. I love our thread of patriotism throughout the school. And we really try to remain true to the principles of liberty that our country was founded on, and our freedoms that we have. So it's really a fantastic system that we have to teach character here, and we really look to culminate that when our students graduate. And we hope that we are not just producing students that have received a good education academically, but also that have received a good education with high character, that they are going to be citizens that can stand on principle in our society, and principles that are going to benefit our culture and help be our leaders of the future. So we believe so strongly in these values that our school government system, our house system that the students are going to talk to here in a little bit, are named after these capstone virtues. So Domus Prudentii is the house of prudence. Domus Temperantii is the house of temperance. Domus Justitii, Domus Fortitudinus, Domus Gratitudinus. These are our houses that we look to really educate the students through and highlight in the school is something to talk to the students about and to teach them explicitly, and not just hope that they pick up a few good lessons along the way, but really be very intentional with our student body in that process. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of feel for our character education. And I believe at this time, Mrs. Sandy Stoltzfus, our academic dean, is going to come up and talk to you a little bit about the registration process. Mrs. Stoltzfus, you are up.
Good evening. I'll be quick. You have the information that I'm going to go over on that purple sheet. So a lot of you will have questions and, trying to figure out, okay, how does the policy work? So, but to introduce myself real quick, I am the academic dean here at the high school. So we're 7th through 12th grade. I'm also a parent of a 3rd grader. And Kayla and I were just talking about a little bit of, is it Kayla? About the difference between liberty and trapped. And so for those of you parents, I was that parent just a few years ago looking at kindergarten and trying to figure out and going, oh, I kind of fell in love with liberty, and then I had to go, I don't know if I'll get in, right? Because there's only about, maybe 30 spots available in kindergarten. Because the way that the lottery and the priority enrollment works is that siblings get priority, then it's put our school district within, if you live within the district, there's priority there, and then kind of beyond that. And I was like, I live in Weld County, and, all these things. I was like, I'm not going to get in. So I started looking at other options, and that is one thing we all need to be doing, too, is going, this is a direction, and this is feeling like a good fit, but you also want to be exploring your options. And so Trout for elementary school is a great option. Ridgeview we've talked about. For me, I fell in love with the core knowledge curriculum as a parent, and so we have several core knowledge schools within the district. And so looking K through, through high school at what that other option is for you as you understand kind of that lottery process, that there's no guarantees, but there are a lot of great options in school, in a community that has choice. So our enrollment process or policy, I'm going to let you guys read over that. For elementary school, the way it works is you've kind of done your job, right? You've put your child on the lottery, you've attended this meeting, or you're going to go home and put them on the lottery. And actually, for kindergarten, they're going to start that draw as early as they're going to pull these sheets tomorrow, they're going to get their ducks in a row, and that's going to get going tomorrow. So over the course of this next week, again, it's a handful of spots, and that doesn't mean that more spots won't come open as we get, I remember I got my call from Trout when I was looking. I didn't get a call from Liberty, so my daughter started in 2nd grade. But I got my call from Trout like 2 weeks before school started, so that's kind of the way it can work in this choice system. So that's elementary school. You'll be contacted if a spot's available. And your name will remain. So if you're like, okay, I've got my other kindergarten spot, but I'm still interested in 2nd and 3rd grade, your name will remain on the list. The same process for junior grade. So if you're looking at 7th or 8th grade, the process is very similar. We won't be looking at spots probably coming open until probably about April, when we start to see if any of our current students are returning for 7th and 8th grade. So you won't be hearing anything from us until a little bit further down the road. And then high school is a little bit different ballgame. We do end up having quite a few of our students. Kindergarten and 9th grade are the primary times when spots are available at Liberty. Definitely throughout the other grades, there are opportunities. So you've attended a public info night, you're going to submit your online lottery form, and then what we do is we do a grade level assessment. And that's not a test to see if you get in Liberty or you don't get in Liberty. We don't do that. It's a purely lottery system. But we do need to evaluate, see where students are on the MAPS NWA test. It's a test that kids do throughout the district. That helps us to make sure that we're making a recommendation for the correct grade level for your students. And so we do that prior to the lottery so that we can get you in the right lottery. We'll make a grade level recommendation. Students do have the option to shadow. We have shadows coming up towards the end of February. There's also, though, every Thursday at 10, a tour with Mr. Schaefer here. That's a great thing to come to do at the high school. Same thing at the elementary school. They have a weekly tour, so that's definitely something that you want to take advantage of. And then we will do our first grade level lottery draw on the 2nd for the high school, 9th grade, 9th through 11th. If you are here tonight and your child hasn't been already gone through the testing, we've done that this last week. So those students that got me in the lottery kind of through the fall and early January, we've done that testing. Those students will be in the lottery. Students that are here, or families that are here tonight that are interested in being in the lottery, will be doing our 2nd round of testing and lottery about mid-April. So you'll still have that opportunity for sure. That is all I have. So, if you have any questions for me about the process, that was quick, stop me afterwards. All right, guys. And in closing, our awesome leaders.
Hey guys, like we said before, I'm James Conrady and this is Will Denton, and we're here to talk about just a few more things with you. So we'll make it quick because you know you've been here a long time. So first up is dress code. Dress code is one of the key things about Liberty that makes it more important as a college prep school. Many of the students here don't love the dress code, but what they don't know is that it's actually helping them for later in life. So our dress code here is a business casual. So it's not quite this as much as we're wearing here, but more like just like a collared shirt and dress slacks or nice khakis for guys. And girls have many more options like skirts and stuff like that. And it's designed so that kids and students don't get distracted while they're learning. And also so that people can't dress based on how rich they are and how much money they spend on their clothes. And this dress code is key because it is used in the business world. So once these kids go to college and get jobs, they'll be more suited and will dress better for their jobs. Next, we have the house system, which is also another key part of our high school. Our house system consists of these 5 houses, which are all after the corn capstones, like Mr. Lovely told you before. Each of these consists of students grades 9 through 12, and they're not based on anything specific, like academics or grades or anything like that, but they're just, you get inducted to one when you come to the high school, no matter what grade you start in, and you're in that house until you graduate. What's really fun about high school is that these houses, we have competitions between the houses, and they all compete to get the most points. And the house with the most points at the end of the year wins the Neenan Cup, which is a special award that every house wins. And you get special privileges for the last quarter, which are like free dress days, and you get food catered to you for a couple lunches. Also, in the houses, it provides leadership opportunities for students. Because there's several levels of leadership. They can start as young as 9th grade in high school, and then there's specific ones for each grade level. And these are the symbols of each of the houses.
Yes?
How do they decide which child gets into which house?
It's completely random. So I believe, Mr. Schaefer, would you like to answer this question in more detail?
Why don't we come back to that? We're over on time. Let's finish this and
awesome.
We're going to answer some questions.
All right, so this is our mascot, the Eagle, Liberty Eagles. I'd like to talk a little bit about school traditions. So we have prom and homecoming, lots of dances like any other school. Those are really big. Prom and homecoming are both set up by student leaders. They set these events up and run them as student leaders, obviously chaperoned by teachers and aides. So prom and homecoming are big. Torch Trek is also a big one. Torch Trek is the induction. So at the start of each year, we have out here the Torch Trek. It starts down at the elementary school and is a symbol of the kids in 7th or 6th grade coming up to the high school to 7th grade. It's our way of welcoming them to the school. And this goes for all students that are coming to Liberty, because they can start at the elementary and get to know kids, walk up to the high school. We get to tour the high school and just get to know these kids and really welcome them. So
next we have leadership. I kind of touched on this a little bit before when I was talking about the house system. But, so leadership in the high school level starts at the bottom here, at 9th grade. Each house has several leaders that help run the house. The freshmen, they have a position called freshman rep, and so it's just an introductory level leadership position for freshmen who want to do something and are hoping to get up to a higher leadership level. Sophomores have the same kind of thing, a sophomore rep, and it's just pretty much the same thing as freshmen. It introduces them to leadership, and it helps them provide an experience to let them know if they want to continue or if leadership is just too much for them. I happen to be freshman and sophomore rep for my house, and this year I'm a sophomore, so I'm sophomore rep. Also, the next level up from that is house captains. Each house has 2 house captains, and they pretty much run everything about their house. And they can be either junior or senior, and they're in charge of their house's planning events and running the house meetings and all that kind of stuff. And then next we have junior high. So the junior high is 7th and 8th grade here at Liberty, and it's also in this building. And it's a unique opportunity for the students to interact with 7th graders and 8th graders to interact with high schoolers. And they get to see what it's like here at the high school. They follow the core knowledge curriculum, which you have heard lots about tonight. They also have many electives, which are a lot more the same as high schoolers. So some electives, they get to be in the same class as high schoolers. They have sports. Many of them are the same also as high school. And since the houses have a house system, the high school has a house system rather, the junior high also has a system like that, but it's called the order system. And each order system also has leaders. And they interact with the high school system and plan events just like that. So LCHS is. So for me, Liberty is a challenging college prep school, but it's a good one that builds your character, and it's small enough that the teachers can interact with the students on a personal level. So the classes are small enough that the teachers know who all the students are by name, and they can connect with them and help them achieve a better education. So
There's 90th grade. In terms of classes, it's all over. Some are 32, 33, the biggest ones. And most are, some of the electives can be a small school.
Yeah, so LCHS is, to me, it's the best fit for me. I've enjoyed LCHS thoroughly. A couple things. Teachers, we have the best teachers. I could talk to you all day about our teachers. Mr. Dubzinski, my English teacher, he just gets you involved. Like, he teaches and makes you want to learn English. Mr. Kim, my Latin teacher, he's the funniest guy. He's hilarious. But he is purposeful. He gets you to learn. And it's not this kind of forceful, like, here's the curriculum, here I'm going to read from the book today. It's just, as you can see in this picture, I don't know if you noticed, he's got his hands wide. He's really, really animated getting you into this class. Class size also, love the class size. It's very small. It really lets you understand the teachers, get to know teachers, also get to know a lot of the students in your classes. It really helps discussion time, definitely. That's a big priority in a lot of classes when you discuss different topics in those classes. It's just great to know the students, understand where they're coming from, and really personally get to discuss that with them. Also, the character, the capstones, which we spoke about earlier, are great. Just really emphasizing character qualities. That's just something you don't get at other schools. I personally am a musician. I'm a singer, and I also do musical theater. And here at this school, Mr. Lon is amazing. He is our music teacher. Just an amazing teacher and musician. Like, you just hear him play. He plays the saxophone. It's just amazing. You just can't even describe it, but he's an amazing teacher. Also, Miss Og is another music teacher who also takes care of musical theater, and she does just a great job. Academics, amazing. You've heard a lot about that tonight, but I just feel very prepared going into college admissions and getting ready to go to college after next year, since I'm a junior this year. Just feel very prepared for what college has to throw at me. So. Next, we have questions.
So getting into your house. Let me take that. Getting into your house is not exactly random, but we have, there's a house director who's in charge of the house system, and so we take a look at the balance. We want to make sure there's similar numbers of males and females in each house, kids of different grades. We try with the 8th graders coming up through 9th grade, we know them, so we try to make sure that we've got spread out all the athletes, all the introverts, the extroverts, spread out the problems to the extent we have, and try to make sure that the houses are balanced, because they compete with one another. We don't want to see one house run away. They compete on academic things as well as some games, and then showing up at events is one of the ways if we have a basketball game and we determine that it's a spirit game, and when you go to the basketball game as a student, you go find your house captain, check off your name on the clipboard, and whichever house cranks out the most spectators to be at that basketball game.